All right, guys, the following interview may include discussion of some harsh treatment and experiences by our guest, Nancy, throughout her life. So this content could be triggering for some. And if there is that chance, I encourage you just to go ahead and skip this episode and go and check out one of the others for the show. So through her book, Life in the Shadows, Nancy offers us a rare and courageous glimpse into the devastating and complex nature of traumatic injury from childhood sexual abuse and all of its associated symptoms. We witness firsthand how our survival instincts can help us live through the unlivable and then cope with the aftermath. We are reminded of the power of the meaningful connection in bringing healing, purpose, and possibility into our lives. And perhaps, most importantly, we are shown by vivid example that it is possible to heal from trauma. Nancy, so glad to have you on the show today.
Oh, thank you so much for allowing me this access to your audience to share my story.
No problem. And really kind of excited just to hear your story from a position of learning, of healing and growth from traumatic experiences. And so basically you're the author of Life in the Shadows, which is out on Amazon and things of that nature, which we'll have a link in the show notes below for. But it's your story of your traumatic experiences as you grew up being sexually abused when you're 7, right? Is that?
Yes, I was raped at the age of 7. And that in itself would change my perception of what normal or normalcy would become for me. Anybody that experiences a trauma, it affects basically how you perceive things. It affects your sense of security. It affects, it brings on fear that you never knew even existed before. And it affects how you think other people perceive you because of how you perceive yourself.
Yeah. And with that, so was this, and you don't have to answer these questions if you don't want, but was it someone you knew? Is that
It
kind
was a
of?
next door neighbor.
Oh man, wow.
Yeah.
So
So being that person was so close all the
mm-hmm.
time also, I think maybe makes the trauma a little bit um, overwhelming because you see that person all the time.
Yeah.
So it intensifies, I guess, the feeling of fear.
Oh, I'm sure.
And I'm from a generation where it was basically a generation of secrets. Just because, I mean, there was no internet back then, and there was no Facebook, and there was no Instagram. There was none of that.
Right.
And these things were never talked about. And there was very little known about it, even though my story is certainly not unique.
Right. Unfortunately.
Just by publishing the book, I've heard from hundreds of people that just say, "Oh my God, your story is so much like mine," or it's basically along the same lines. So it's nowhere's unique, and it still happens today, unfortunately.
Right. Yeah.
But with the internet, it gives people information.
Yeah.
I guess that they would never otherwise have.
For sure. Yeah. And that definitely the just generational differences with that and having no outlet kind of and no education back then. Now, so this was, like you said, you had the secret of it. So you grew up with this neighbor throughout your life there, you knowing this. How long did that process go until you were able to come and bring that to light to start the healing process?
Oh my God, it took a long
I'm
time.
sure.
I was, we moved away from there, I think, when I was about 11 years old.
Okay.
I think something like that. But still, the secret follows you because by that time you've been living with it for 4 years. So it's like, I very quickly came to the conclusion that there was something wrong with me, that it was something about me that had caused this. And I felt very different than the rest of the people around me, but it's a common thing. It seems to be a common denominator between anybody that even goes any kind of trauma, actually.
Yep.
Yeah, you feel broken. You think there's something wrong with you. And I brought this with me through my entire life, but I was one of these people that was fortunate because, and I know we're going to talk about this later on about mentors and coaches and stuff, but I was one of the fortunate ones that always had what I call earth angels. That at the times where I struggled the most, all of a sudden these people would appear in my life. People that I either had never met, people that would just kind of be there and offer some kind of reassurance, feeling safe, and that goes back as far as like even with teachers.
Yeah.
You know, you never know the impact you're going to have on somebody's life.
That's so true.
These people, to me, they made me feel special. There was a grade 4 teacher and a grade 8 teacher that I can remember. And because for that 1 year, they gave me a place where I felt safe, where for some reason I felt like I was being seen and heard. They still didn't know my secret, but they made me feel smart. They made me feel different, but in a good way.
Yeah, and that's huge too, because I mean, we never know the people we interact with. We don't know their stories completely. We don't know everything. And my wife being a teacher, it's the same thing. And she tells me stories of things that have happened to kids that she's heard of through like the educational board and everything, because it becomes that level. But she's like, I would have never known. And so always having that interaction that is positive, because you never know what they're going through.
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, these teachers didn't only treat me special. They did it with their entire classroom.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they had that ability to make that one person feel special.
Yep. Who needed it more than the others, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how long was it before you were able to start? When did you be able to open up and start to like basically say that this happened?
At 50.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I found alcohol in my teenage years.
Okay.
I was 12 years old when I first found alcohol. And it made me feel normal. It made me feel okay. And I very quickly became addicted to it. But it was a short addiction. By the time I was 19, had I not found recovery, alcohol would have killed me.
Man.
But at the same time, it kept me alive through my teenage years, which is something that I desperately needed. Otherwise, I don't think I would have made it through high school without committing suicide. So, but like I said, I mean, as much as it was something very difficult to live with, it also kept me alive until I was able to get strong enough to be able to become the person that I am today.
Yeah. And that's so, I mean, just kind of a testament to generational differences possibly, but like the fact that it was such a secret, and like, I think nowadays, at least, seeking counseling is becoming more of a positive thing. Whereas I know when I was younger, I thought seeking counseling was like a weakness or something of that nature. And so now that people would finally, hopefully, breaking through that stigma of being able to seek counseling, hopefully will help a lot of people. But so alcohol since 12, how did you break that? It's like, what helped you get through that area of life?
Earth angels.
Yeah.
People that I had never met, that I didn't know, basically got together and kind of did a bit of an intervention.
Okay.
To get me to recovery. And they basically stayed with me.
Yeah.
They offered me shelter, you know, and it was just amazing. You know, and a lot of these people, like we're talking 35 years ago now, but a lot of these people, after I moved on from there, I never saw again.
Wow.
You know, we just kind of went our separate ways, but they saved my life.
That's wow. And did you know these people, or were these strangers, or a mixture
They
of
were
both?
strangers. They were strangers.
Wow.
Because shortly after I graduated from high school, I had a part-time job in a retail store, and the assistant manager's wife befriended me.
Okay.
She, for some reason, knew and understood that I was very much in trouble. Like I just was barely making it through each day, and I used to laugh because I used to tell people, I don't care if I graduate. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to see my 19th birthday.
Wow.
That seemed to be, for me, once I reached 19, it seemed to be like that would be the time where I would just basically end it all. That would be enough for me. And her and her husband, I guess, had discussions, and he told her, he said, well, you know, if they were moving on to a different store in a different province. And he said to her, he said, well, you know, if we don't take her with us, she won't make it. So basically they offered me room and board, and he offered me a job in another province. And that's how I left where I was at. But they knew that I had an addiction problem.
Okay.
And she's the one that found somebody that was a member of Alcoholics Anonymous and had them come and talk to me.
So you were living with them at that time? Okay. Yeah. So you had moved out from your parents, or?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right after I graduated, I left home.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So, and this kind of goes back, and I'm just curious, with the neighbor at age 7, was it a one-time thing? Did you ever have to hear from that person again, or was it just kind of a forgotten?
It was a one-time thing, but they lived directly across the road from us. So
man.
I ran into him often.
Yeah.
I didn't have to talk to him, but he was always in my eyesight. Like he, you know, if he'd come out of his front door, I would see him because we were playing outside. Like, you know, so it was always, the reminder was always there. And he had warned me that if I told anybody, he would come after my younger sister.
Oh, geez.
So, I mean, that's what predators do anyways. They tend to go after the families, or tell you that they'll go after your family, and they never do. But as a child, you don't understand that.
Man.
So, yeah.
And so you went AA to get through the alcohol, and how was that process? I mean, I'm sure that was even difficult to overcome the alcoholism through that.
It took a while for me to actually want to be sober.
Yeah.
Because that had been my coping mechanism.
Right.
So once I sobered up, I started having a lot of issues with PTSD, with flashbacks and nightmares and all these things that alcohol had been covering up for me. So I started living differently.
Okay.
I managed to stay away from alcohol, but I also, my sleeping pattern changed dramatically. I started sleeping in little, like 15-minute increments, sitting in a chair so that I wouldn't go into a deep sleep and there would be no nightmare.
Man.
And I kept myself busy as I could. Like every hour of the day, if I could be doing something, I stayed busy. And eventually that kind of caught up with me.
Yeah.
I injured my back, which was, I think, life's way of saying, okay, this is enough. Like you're pushing yourself too much, and now it's time for you to deal with this.
Yeah.
And I went into a depression and was hospitalized in the psychiatric unit for being a danger to myself. And that's where I think it kind of, that's where I realized where my life was heading. And because I was sitting there one day and I said, my God, I said, like, you're 22 years old, you have a good job, and you're sober. What is the matter with you? Like, why can't you get this? And it took a little bit of work. I was hospitalized for 2 weeks, and then it just kind of let me go home without any follow-up whatsoever.
Wow.
Yeah. I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder.
Okay.
Because the psychiatrist that had interviewed me spent maybe half an hour with me, and we didn't click. So there was no way that I was going to open up to this person, and I just didn't talk. So
I
they
gotcha.
basically diagnosed me with borderline personality disorder.
Huh.
And I wasn't aware of that, but I found that out later
Later,
in
man.
years when I had access to my medical records. So from there, I decided that I would try to get help.
Mm-hmm.
And the first two therapists that I ran into, there was no connection there, and I didn't like them. And so I think it took me a year
Okay.
to find somebody.
Wow.
And it was a psychologist, and I went to see this person every second Saturday for 4 years.
Wow.
And the first 2 years, I never said a word.
Wow.
I would drive 2.5 hours to go see her, and I would sit there like the whole 2.5 hours. I would say, okay, this week I'm really going to talk to her. I'm going to tell her what's going on. And by the time I would get there was nothing.
Wow.
I had no access to that part of my brain.
Yeah.
Where the trauma was stored.
For sure. So
I had lived most of my life with the logical side of my brain.
Yep.
You know, kind of void of emotions. You just don't go there. And I would just kind of go through the motion of a day. But and even in those 4 years, I never verbally told her what happened.
Okay. I was wondering, yeah. Okay.
No.
Wow. So did she just kind of hear the story about like your depression and alcoholism and never really got to the underlying root of it all?
Yeah. I could not go. She knew by little bits and pieces that I was able to offer in information. She was able to put together a picture. But I never did tell her the story from beginning to end until way later. I think, well, she read my book, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So she contacted you back and said, wow, I never knew.
Well, she knew because the signs were there.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
But she didn't have the actual details.
Okay.
And that would come like later. I think I may have written a letter at one point to her during in therapy, like because she would give me this homework to do, and God, I used to hate that. And most of the time I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
But I think this one time it was to write a letter to this person that had hurt me so much. And I think she might have gathered some of the information from there.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how long did you see her?
I went to see her for 4 years.
4 years? Okay. I didn't know if you continued after. Okay.
And then she kind of offered me enough tools that I was able to maneuver through life fairly, not happy, not sad, just kind of in a dead zone.
Okay.
But that, for me at the time, that was the best I could do.
For sure. So
but I was comfortable there. I was okay there.
Oh, I bet. It's just easier. So when did you find that you like started having the bigger breakthroughs as far as healing? Like, was it
when I turned 50?
Okay, when you were able to open up. How did that come about? Like, what caused you to finally want to bring that to light and start that process? Because that's a huge, for carrying that for so long, for 43 years. Like, that's wow.
At 31, I met who is currently my wife now.
Okay.
And for years, I couldn't figure out why she would even be with me, because my impression of me was certainly not very good.
Gotcha.
And there was nothing about me that I liked, but I couldn't figure out what she liked about me. She thought I was this amazing person, that I was smart, and that I was just awesome. And I thought, it took me years, and I can't say that at the very beginning I loved her, because I don't think I was capable of that. But we never fought. We seemed to really get along together, and it was almost like a soulmate. So I stayed, and eventually I really grew to love her, because she became basically the rock in my life.
Gotcha.
She believed so much in me that I slowly started to believe in myself, to the point where I set up my own business, and I'm doing really well at that. And I really started to see little bits and pieces of what she could see. And at 50, there's quite an age gap between the two of us. There's 17 years in the difference.
Okay.
So by the time I was 50, she was already 67.
Okay.
And we had been together for quite a few years, but for some reason that was the year where I said, oh my God, like, we don't have as many years ahead of us as what we've had together. And I really wanted to be in the moment. I wanted to know what it was like to live every day, loving absolutely everything about it, about the process of being alive, of being with her, and having her part of my life. And I had not been able to do that. So at 50 is when I decided that I was going to go back into therapy to make sure that I could deal with this thing once and for all.
Yeah.
And feel alive.
For sure.
And the only way for me to do that, because of my character, I don't do anything unless I absolutely have to.
I gotcha.
So I filed a civil lawsuit against the guy that had raped me.
Wow.
And I figured, if anything, this was going to force me to come to terms with it. I had no choice.
Yeah.
And I went into therapy because I needed to find my voice. I needed to find a way to tell these people in Discovery what had happened to me and what it had done. And that's when the book kind of came to life.
Wow.
Because the only way I found I was able to do that was in writing. I had to see my story before I was able to tell it.
Yeah.
So I wrote, and eventually I put it into book form.
Yeah.
And it took on a life of its own.
And I think going back to what you said a little bit ago was, so for so long you were telling yourself like you weren't worthy, like all this negative, and it just kind of encapsulated your mindset and your heart. And so like you not being able to see all the good about yourself, and then finally you were able to start chipping away at that and finally just kind of bust out and be able to kind of live freely and truly see who you were. I think that's huge. And I think that happens to so many people. They just tell themselves over and over negative things about themselves, and it just imprisons them, I think.
Yeah, it certainly does. It changes your entire perception of life.
Yeah.
And what's available for you.
For sure.
But like I said, there's no way I would have been, when I decided at 50 that I was going to make these major changes.
Yeah.
It also became very important that I surround myself with people that could support me through this. And I decided that I was going to basically pull together a group of professional women. Of course, they all had to be women for me to be comfortable.
Yeah. And
that included everybody from my family physician. I seeked out all kinds of holistic practitioners of different walks of life. I even consulted with a shaman, with mediums, and anybody that I knew that at any point through this journey, I could reach out to, and they would be there for me.
For sure.
So that meant that I needed to share parts of my story with them, but at the time I could only do that in writing.
Yeah.
So each of them got basically the same letter, stating why I was doing this and why I needed their help, and what were my triggers, so that everybody was aware. And were they able to work with me? And all of them stepped up.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of just goes back to the importance of community and having people around you, a circle of people. It doesn't have to be a lot, but a group, and they all bring something to help one another. And such a huge testament to that. And so you filed the lawsuit. How did that play out? Was it anything come from that, or was it just you filed it and it was done? I'm not.
God,
like
that's
I'm sure that was something.
It's been a nightmare, actually. It's been. I walked away from it after 4.5 years.
Yeah.
Which was just December of this
Okay.
past year.
Wow.
I just had to basically walk away. The legal system is very broken when it comes to dealing with victims.
Gotcha.
As much in Canada as I see it is in the States. But everything got postponed over and over and over again. And we eventually had a discovery hearing in October of 2018.
Yeah.
That was certainly not what I would call empowering for me. I found it very shaming. The whole process is very shaming and embarrassing. And then shortly before Christmas, my lawyer contacted me and said that we would have to go to court in January to fight a motion from the other side. They wanted access to all of my therapy notes throughout the year. Basically, they wanted the client files from the different therapists and everybody that I basically had dealt with throughout the years, and whether it was related to the rape or not, it didn't make any difference.
Right.
So basically, they were on a fishing expedition to bring out basically more things to just shame me to the point where I would no longer want to pursue this case. And he also told me that here in Canada, judges 95% of the time leaned towards giving these documents to the other side. They already had all of my medical documents. They had all of the reports from all of the main therapists that I had worked with through the years.
Right.
But it wasn't enough.
Wow.
You know, they just were looking for stuff that would have just basically destroyed me and taken down people around me that had nothing to do with this lawsuit. So I made the excruciating decision to walk away after 4.5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And did you have to have contact with your neighbor at all, or was he still alive, or how's that?
Oh, he's still alive.
Wow. Okay.
He never attended any of the discovery hearing. We never saw him through this entire process. He never spoke. He never said anything.
Wow.
Because the discovery basically is for them to come and see what my evidence is.
Okay.
So it was 4.5 years of that.
Wow.
And there was no end in sight. And even after giving them all of these other documents, then they would have requested more discovery.
Yeah.
And it would have probably gone on for another 2 to 3 years. And even had I won at the end, to recover any of the funds that I would have won would have been another legal battle.
Yeah.
So it was pointless to carry on.
Yeah.
But it took me probably about a month, because for me, walking away was a personal failure. But the emotional price that I would have had to pay to see it to the end was greater than the shame of me walking away.
For sure. Because I mean, I can't imagine, and I don't try to at all, but like, I don't know what would you have done, or what do you think you would have felt if you would have seen your neighbor again in that trial at all? Like, I can't fathom.
By the time I walked away from the whole thing, it had really nothing to do with him anymore.
Yeah.
It had allowed me to basically become free of all of this.
Gotcha.
I had found my voice. By this time, I had published my book. Everybody, I come from a very small town of maybe 10,000 people.
Okay.
And everybody there knew by this time this story, because this is where I launched my book.
Gotcha.
So, and in my book, I never mentioned his name.
Wow.
But there was nothing stopping me from telling people who he was.
Right.
And I had people in my family telling people who he was. So now, like, there's no winner in any of this, because he walked away with probably a legal bill of anywhere between $60,000 and $75,000. And he was physically crushed by all of this. He required 2 back surgeries. So tell me that the weight of all this didn't crush him.
Oh, I'm sure.
You know?
Absolutely.
And now he's got to live with it.
Yep.
And he's got to live with the
And he
fact
has
that every
been,
time he talks to anybody, he like him and his wife, they're always going to wonder, like, do they know?
Yep.
Have they heard?
Yeah.
You know, so there's no winner in any of this,
Right.
except that I found some sort of peace.
Yeah.
And I'll have to work with a lot of the leftovers of this,
Right.
probably for a few years to come.
Yeah.
But I found a voice, and I'm talking about it,
Yep.
and
And that's huge.
I'm becoming way stronger.
Yeah, absolutely. Being able to bring things, whether it be traumatic events or mistakes we've done or things of that nature, to the surface, to the light, it's a huge step in the positive direction to healing and to growing and to becoming new almost out of that. And I think that's a testament to your story, is that you battled through all this for so long, and found that ability, and you found your way to open up and bring it to the light by finding your voice through writing. And I think that's so amazing, and your story is just so strong and such a good example of never to give up and always try to search for your voice no matter what.
Yeah. But I mean, I
Absolutely.
always had that little voice in my head, even at the darkest moments,
Yeah.
that would just say, like, just hang on, for like, just make it through today.
Yeah.
Maybe tomorrow will be different.
Mm-hmm.
And that kept me alive.
For sure.
And every time somebody would show up, and even if it was just the power of human contact,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anybody really understands how much power that has.
Right.
And even if it's just you're walking somewhere, and you know, you're you're contemplating whether you're going to make it through this day, the person that's coming towards you has no idea,
Right.
because you become very good at hiding these things,
Mm-hmm.
and you look normal.
Right.
But that one person will make eye contact with you, and they'll just even give you a nudge, like just even a quick head shake or
Yep.
anything. And all of a sudden you realize that somebody has seen you. Somebody actually noticed you. You mattered for that 10 seconds. And that can keep you alive until the next day, when you maybe come towards another person that will actually offer you help.
Absolutely. That's
And
huge.
that's the one thing that I try to do every time I go somewheres now.
Yep.
Is to look at least one person and make direct eye contact and let them know that they matter.
Yep.
No matter who they are. I don't care who they are.
Right.
And I don't know who or what they're going through. It could be a lawyer, it could be a judge, it could be a cashier. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because we all have our issues.
Yeah. Yep.
And we're all good at hiding them.
For
Some
sure.
less,
Absolutely.
not as good as others.
Mm-hmm.
But you never know. Even that most confident person standing in front of you could be dying inside, and we don't know it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, my faith and what I believe in is to treat everyone the way you want to be treated and love everybody. And I believe God puts people in our lives that help us, and like the earth angels you talked about, like just people there just kept you going and kept at the right time helping you along your path. And I think just how crazy it is, and how like we could be used for something like that. Like, I think God could use us in people's lives, and just like you say, it doesn't matter who it is, you're trying to make them know that they matter by acknowledging them is huge. And I think such a very good trait to have, and thing and action to put into practice. And just for our listeners, kind of to wrap things up, like what would you say are 3 things, and I'm throwing this out there, I didn't prepare you for this, but what would you say 3 things would be for people to start a healing process who might have been through something like this, or another traumatic event?
Don't be afraid to ask for help. That is the number one.
Mm-hmm.
And if you run into the person that you don't click with, move on.
Yeah.
Go to somebody else until you find that one person that will help you reach a certain level. Mm-hmm. And from there, you may need to move on to somebody else, because you can outgrow people.
Right.
Second of all is if you have a secret, tell at least one person.
Yeah.
You know, and today's technology allows us to do that.
Yep.
You don't even have to see the person.
Right.
You can just send an anonymous message to
Yep.
anybody, you know, but
Yep.
just do it, because that will take the pressure off of that secret by probably 50%.
Absolutely.
And thirdly is be okay with where you are at this moment here. Doesn't mean you're going to stay there.
Right.
Just be okay with it.
For
because
sure.
that will give you the opportunity to move on.
Yeah, man. Yeah, those are all huge and very good tips and ways to start healing. And so thank you for sharing that. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you for having the courage to be able to start writing that book, Life in the Shadows, and blessing everyone with that, and the benefit it's going to help somebody else. And so thankful for you being on the show. But before you go, I would like to ask you just a couple questions that have to pertain to pencil leadership. And I know you've touched on the first one a little bit with the people who had impacted your life, but was there anyone in particular, specific person that had impacted your journey in a positive way?
Oh, there's been so many.
Yeah.
If
So
I look
hard.
like just in the last 5 years,
Yeah.
The person that I'm working with now, the trauma specialist,
Yep.
has been a gift.
That's awesome.
Just a gift. Like,
Yeah.
she's been able to take me to a place where I was never able to achieve before.
Wow. That's awesome.
Just by that human connection.
Yeah. And I think that's cool. Yeah. Because we can have so many, and it just depends on the stage that we are in life and the things we're going through. Those people will be there at the right moment. So I think that's really cool that we
Yeah, had you asked
always
me
be
that
looking.
10 years ago, I would have had a different answer for
Right.
you.
Exactly. No, that's awesome. So, well, the second one, so now you've found your voice, you've written your book. But after everything is done here on earth, you've done everything you want to do. You said everything you want to say. What positive mark do you want people to see from your life?
I want someday for just one person to say that I made a difference, for just that one person.
Yeah.
I don't need to be recognized by 100 or 1,000 or just that one person. If I can make a difference in one person's life, then I reached my goal. I did what I was put here to do.
That's awesome. Well, I am going to assume that you are going to touch more than one person's life and help more than one person's life with your story and your strength and courage to do so. So again, I appreciate you being on Pencil Leadership and sharing such a tough and traumatic story with us, and just showing us how we can get through things like that and change ourselves and the world around us. So Nancy, thank you again so much. Is there anything you'd like to, I know your book's coming out, anything else that you have going on, or any ways people can connect with you more?
My book, Life in the Shadows, actually has its own Facebook page.
Awesome.
So people can connect with me there. It's available on Amazon as well as any major ebook retailers.
Awesome.
Have it. And there's just, I just want to leave your audience with just one note.
Yeah.
Try to not judge the person that's standing in front of you or beside you. Just because we all judge them within the first 30 seconds we meet them.
Yeah.
But you don't know what that person is going through. You don't know what that person has had happen to them. So just try to get to learn to know who the person is and where they come from. And it so often will explain why they are the way that they are. So
100%.
just give people a chance.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. And again, Nancy, thank you so much for sharing. We're so grateful and humbled that you jumped on here with us today and shared all this for our audience. So thank you again.
Well, thank you. And thank you for making a difference, because you allow people like me to have a voice.
Yeah. Thankful that I can have people on here and be able to do this for sure. So, but all right, guys. Well, again, thanks for listening to the show today. If you took anything away from this, if you liked the show, which I'm sure you did, let us know. Leave us a rating or review, and we love to hear from you. So thanks again for listening, guys.